Number 10. Scarcity is manufactured, but still feels real. There's more than enough food, more than enough land, more than enough housing, statistically, materially, physically, but somehow, nobody can get any of it. Prices rise, supply chains break, shelves sit full, but unaffordable, and you start to feel like survival is a competitive sport. This isn't new. The late Roman Empire hoarded grain while citizens starved, not due to famine, but policy, control through scarcity, and eventually, the illusion cracked. When a system produces excess but frames it as lack, you're not in an economy, you're in a psychological operation, and that illusion is starting to slip. People see empty houses next to tent cities, food waste next to food insecurity, and they're starting to ask questions. That's how systems fall, not from fire, but from disbelief, when the story no longer sells. Number 9. Money is no longer connected to value. Once money represented labor, materials, a harvest, a service rendered. Now, it represents anticipation. Stock markets rise when people are laid off. Valuations skyrocket for companies that don't make anything. Fortunes are built on volatility, not value. When wealth creation is no longer tied to production, but perception, the system becomes a game, and games break when too many players lose. The Soviet Union's ruble was once backed by oil, gold, and production. By the 1980s, it was backed by nothing but memory and bureaucracy, and it imploded without warning. Capitalism isn't there yet. But when housing, education, and healthcare are priced by speculation, not utility, you're not trading goods anymore. You're trading stories, and stories can vanish overnight. Number 8. The rich are prepping for exit, not reform. They're not fixing the system. They're building ways out of it. Private bunkers, passports from stable micronations, rocket ships to nowhere with billionaires on board, not escape plans, contingency plans. The people with the most influence, the most access, and the most resources aren't trying to stabilize anything. They're trying to insulate themselves from its collapse because they know it's coming. In the late stages of feudal Europe, aristocrats did the same. While peasants rioted, they fled to fortified estates, far from the chaos they helped create. It didn't stop the fall, it just delayed their experience of it. When the elites stop investing in the system and start investing in lifeboats, that's not wealth strategy. That's a signal. And the rest of us, we're just being left behind, politely. Number 7, work doesn't work anymore. You clock in, you grind, you deliver, but the numbers don't move. Or worse, they move backward. Wages haven't kept up with productivity in over 40 years. You're doing more, the system gives back less, and so, work fragments, side gigs, passive income, hustle culture, the labor version of duct tape. Ancient Rome faced a similar fracture. As economic inequality grew, citizens lost faith in labor and turned to conquest and distraction. It worked, until there was nothing left to conquer. We were told work equals dignity. That effort would be rewarded. But now working feels like running on a treadmill that's quietly accelerating, and when effort no longer correlates to outcome, people don't just burn out, they opt out. That's not laziness. That's a system reaching the end of its credibility. Number 6. The middle class is now a buzzword, not a reality. You still hear the phrase, middle class values. It shows up in campaign speeches, ad slogans, sitcoms, as if it still means something, but statistically, it's evaporating. The middle class, as a stable, upwardly mobile majority, peaked decades ago. Now it exists mostly in commercials and nostalgia. In pre-revolutionary France, the bourgeoisie clung to their titles even as purchasing power collapsed. They were told they were middle, but they weren't buffered, just trapped between wealth and survival. Sound familiar? Today, you can have a college degree, a mortgage, and a full-time job, and still leave paycheck to paycheck, still go without healthcare, still feel like you're slipping. When the average citizen can no longer afford the normal life they were promised, the illusion breaks, and once the center gives out, systems don't bend. They buckle. Number 5. Technology accelerates, but human life degrades. We can deepfake a politician, simulate emotions, clone voices, but we still can't guarantee clean water, or mental health care, or housing. The tech curve is exponential. The human condition is flatlining. In the final decades of the Soviet Union, scientific output soared, but life expectancy dropped. The system could still innovate, it just couldn't take care of people anymore. We now have AI that can write essays and generate faces that don't exist. But you still need GoFundMe to afford insulin. That's not advancement, that's distraction. And when a system starts optimizing for spectacle instead of survival, it's not a sign of strength, it's a last act. Number 4. Even money itself is becoming abstract. There was a time when money tracked effort. You worked, you earned, you spent. Now, it fluctuates while you sleep. Debt is sold, crypto pumps and dumps, NFTs collapse and reappear, entire fortunes disappear in milliseconds, and nothing physical moves. That's not evolution. That's disconnection. In the final days of the Roman Empire, coinage was so debased it became symbolic. Gold was gone, value was diluted. Eventually, people stopped trusting the currency altogether. When money stops reflecting material reality, it becomes belief-based, a shared fiction, a useful lie. But belief is fragile. If enough people stop believing, the system doesn't slow down, it vanishes. Number 3. Essential workers are treated as expendable. They kept the world moving when it stalled. Nurses, delivery drivers, grocery clerks, they were clapped for, labeled heroes, then sent back into a system that underpays, overworks, and quietly forgets them. Ancient empires did the same. Gladiators, foot soldiers, builders, used until broken, then discarded. But here's the thing about foundational roles. You can't replace them with hashtags. A system that can't protect its core labor force isn't just unfair, it's unsustainable, because eventually the people holding it up let go, not with fire, but with silence. Number 2. Survival is branded as personal failure. You can't afford rent? Should have worked harder. You're in debt? Should have budgeted better. Somehow the system collapses upward, and the blame rolls downhill. Late-stage systems always rewrite the story. In the final years of the British Empire, poverty was framed as moral weakness. The deserving poor were separated from the lazy, not to help anyone, but to maintain the illusion that the system still worked. We're doing the same. But with podcasts, financial gurus, life hack culture, you're not broke because rent tripled and wages flatlined. You're just not drinking the right protein shake. That kind of gaslighting isn't a glitch, it's collapse management. And the more people blame themselves for systemic failure, the longer the system can pretend it's fine. Number 1. Trust has collapsed, quietly, universally, systemically. We don't believe the headlines, or the CEOs, or the candidates, or the institutions they speak for. We go through the motions, vote, scroll, comply. But something underneath has already broken. When people stop trusting the structure, systems don't fall in flames, they just dissolve. This is what happened in the last years of the USSR. Citizens still showed up to work, to school, to military parades, but no one believed anymore. Collapse began not with violence, but with disconnection. We're not storming palaces, we're just tired, unplugging, and waiting, not for revolution, but for something else to make sense.